Please give us a small introduction of yourselves, a very quick and crisp introduction about you, your company, and what is it that you stand for. I'll start with you.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mahesh, and I'm from Tailor. We are into personalized fashion and tailoring for women's. We are having presence across 13 cities. We have a complete omni-channel, e-commerce, a website, app, EBO, and SIS format. Thank you.
Thank you. Neerja.
Hi, I'm Neerja Lakhani. I'm the co-founder of Innersense. It's a sustainable lingerie brand. So we started with the idea that everybody in the lingerie industry is just talking about fit, color, style. But what about the basic ingredient where we say, why do we wear innerwear? It's for hygiene, but nobody's focusing on that. So we brought in the hygiene factor through Innersense.
Thank you, Neerja. Supriya.
Hi, I'm Supriya. I'm the founder of FOReT. We are a PETA-approved vegan and a sustainable fashion brand. At FOReT, we believe that eco-friendly materials need to be given a justified position. So we make very elegant and beautiful looking products and accessories from cork tree, from the banana tree, and also with sustainable metals. Through this endeavor, we also promote rural artisans, we promote rural crafts, and post-purchase, we also go back and give back to the community by supporting rural farmers.
Thank you. Satish?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Satish. I'm the co-founder of a couple of D2C brands. Our first brand, which we launched back in 2015, is called Joker and Witch, which is a new age watch and jewelry brand for the millennial and Gen Z consumers. We also have a sister brand called Tej, which is into Indian jewelry and saris. And yeah.
Thank you. Prodipto?
I'm Prodipto Roy. I am a co-founder at Quickshift. We are essentially in the fulfillment and last mile solutions. Work with almost all categories, fashion, footwear, personal care, FMCG. I'm managing about 200,000 orders on a monthly basis. So that's what we do.
Thank you. Aparna.
Aparna. Good afternoon, everyone. So my sister and I, we co-founded Shobitam. Shobitam is a digital first, and I want to emphasize these words, digital first global ethnic fashion brand. And what we do is we proudly showcase the rich textile heritage of India, across the length and breadth of India to our customers around the world.
Thank you. Abishek?
Hi, my name is Abishek. I handle the creatives at an underwear brand called Tailor and Circus. We're a progressive, body positive, and sustainable underwear company.
Thank you.
I'm Damo. I'm Chief Product Officer at Chargeback Gurus. We are a chargeback, dispute, and fraud management company for merchants. Genesis of our company is our founders used to be merchants themselves, and they found that they were losing revenue in the form of disputes and chargebacks, and that's how Chargeback Gurus started 8 years ago.
Good. Fantastic. So what we have on stage is actually a predominance of fashion and apparel brands. But then we've got two nice gentlemen from entities that hopefully will make your lives easy, right? Because of the solutions that they have got into the market. So, but before we start off and get into the rut of things, what exactly is D2C? Is it a strategy? Is it a philosophy? Is it a channel? Is it a business plan? What exactly is D2C? I mean, anyone can take it, starting from you, yeah?
It's a channel, I would say it. But I think, it's been ages old, because if you go to sometime back offline, we are talking about that if you go to the normal store, now that consumer is buying from that store, so it's a direct to consumer. So it's in a way as a D2C. But lately, I think this has, this term has been widely used, but it's ages old, and D2C we have been saying, and most of the brand, if you see, those have in the D2C. Be it in the FMCG side or personal care side of it, or even if you talk about into the fashion side.
So it's a way of doing business in a certain sense. Yeah. Anyone else has?
I think the concept of D2C essentially is who owns the customer. Let's say if you're selling via Amazon or via Flipkart, the customer still belongs to Amazon and they are the ones who are getting it. But if you're owning the customer, I mean the customer is essentially shopping for your brand, then possibly you are I mean, it's your customer. So that is where D2C concept starts coming from. I mean, that's how I would relate to it.
But Prodipto, I don't know how many of you will agree with me on this. Folks, if you want to just come up a little ahead, it'll be nice. It'll be nice to have a cozy little, classroom than a lot of backbenchers. But it's fine if you're comfortable there. But otherwise, I just hope you guys can hear us very clearly. Now, when you say owning the customer, is it about owning the customer or owning the customer experience? Because does anyone, this is for my benefit as well, does anyone really own the customer?
So in case of Amazon and Flipkart or such marketplaces, it is the experiences actually given by the marketplaces, isn't it? So they are the ones who are promising, they are the ones who are delivering on those promises. It is essentially the product which is going over there, right? Versus, let's say, if you're selling via your own channel that you have created and you're able to replicate the same, then the brand can say that, okay, I have
the experience.
I've given the entire experience and I own that and I can relate to it and he can order again, right? So the brand and the customer gap reduces significantly.
Okay. And Siju, I wanted to add to that. Yes, you control the customer experience, but you also control customer information. For example, if you're on a marketplace, you don't have access to their emails. But if they are your customers on your platform, you have access to their customer base. And you can send out those marketing mails directly to them. And that drives a lot of conversion as being opposed to being on a marketplace, for example.
These guys are after your data. No, jokes apart.
So I think, Siju, just to add to that, just to echoing on the same bit, see, when you own the customer data, right? And it starts with the funnel. So when you know what your customer is doing, you can actually build something better for him or her. Right from either you traverse the marketing journey of the customer or how you design your web store or how you propose or launch your product or rather design your product. And then a host of things can be done, but only when you know the data. So I think, data about information about your customers can only be made, is only feasible in a D2C concept. And I think it's a concept, it's a way of doing business. It is a distribution channel. Yes, it is a marketing channel wherein you can reach out to your consumers in a jiffy. You can directly reach out without having any intermediaries in between, which leads to a better margin. I think it's been more of a spin-off and back in the days when largely we used to call it e-commerce, right? 2009 is when the way it literally started. In 2014, 15, but these are more skewed towards marketplace e-commerce, wherein the lot of scale was being spoken about. And I think the shift started in 2014 when people started talking about, can you see profitability? And there was a time when private labels were the only ones having higher gross margins, and the same private labels were selling directly primarily on their own site, and this term was coined around the same time. So I think D2C does give you an edge in terms of customer data, in terms of profitability.
And I also believe that D2C is also a communication channel because it allows you to tell your story to the consumer. It's a direct connect with the consumer. It's also a platform where you get to listen from the consumer and, like you rightly mentioned, accordingly tailor make your products according to their choice and preferences. That is the advantage that D2C has over various other mass market platforms.
So it's about communicating with the customer whose email address you got because you own the data and having a greater control over your conversation with that particular customer. While in case of a marketplace, while that gives you growth, you really are not in control of elements that you would want to be.
Yes, you can add on to the experience part of it. You can probably do a better job than what the marketplaces also are doing.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
One more, leakage. If you're on a marketplace, somebody's looking at your product, but there are 10 other brands that are out there. It's very easy for the customer to go to someone else. But when they're there on your website, you completely control them. There's absolutely no leakage at all.
Okay.
One point I would like to add from the consumer side, what I feel is, for them, it's like a relationship built directly with the brand, and they are participating in the story as the brand is building in front of them, with them. They feel they resonate with the brand. So that's a very typical aspect which only comes through D2C.
So hold that thought, Neerja, because when you say that, that obviously means that it has to be a two-way communication, right? When
Absolutely.
it's about you communicating a story and the consumer accepting that story, aligning with that story, and hence buying your product.
Right.
Right? So what you're saying is that if you're a D2C brand, you need to invest time and effort in terms of building that story, which you don't need to do if you're on a marketplace. Or maybe you have to differentiate, right? I mean, like you said, right, Aparna, that there are many other brands. There are 100 other brands like you are there on Amazon or Flipkart for that matter, right? Damo, you had a point.
Yeah, so the fact is it's an evolution, right? Earlier, if you had to build something like this 10 years back, what was the go-to-market time, technology, skills you need to do it on your own? Today, you have off-the-shelf SaaS platforms available. You're able to rapidly put together all of your end-to-end software you need and technology you need and user experience you need and go direct. You don't have to depend on an Amazon today. Therefore, you get the experience, you're able to control the customer, the mind share, and also you get to own the relationship for longer as well.
Okay, I think that's important. That's an interesting aspect he's bringing in. Obviously, the intention is to own the customer, own mindshare, but the way to do it was a little rocky before.
Access to technology. It was not commodity. You needed some expensive technology. Today, that's all commoditized, right? You're able to put together quickly.
Is everyone out here comfortable with this thought about what a D2C brand is now all about? Are we clear? Yes. Can someone get the microphone to him, please? Can I just borrow your microphone for a second?
Can we also say the fact that D2C, when you're talking about control of data, would you also say that D2C, being in a D2C mode, gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of understanding your customer a lot better in creating, say, new products that access or that solves their problems or acts on their pain points?
See, I think control gives you that flexibility, right? It depends on how you want to leverage data and the control what you have. Like how we spoke about the business funnel, when you understand. So I think the way to look at it is that you need to set the KPIs of what you need to measure. You need to know how you need to measure, which are the tools, be it Google Analytics or multiple analytical tool. Your web store will have a certain analytical framework to itself. And then the most important thing is drawing insights and inferences as to what you're reading, right? How you want to read the data. And that can be cut across all the functional funnel, be it marketing, be it sales, be it operations, understanding the leakages. You can put the data back to use to understand how satisfied or dissatisfied your consumers are. You can look at click-throughs and say whether your product design is good or not, vis-a-vis some other products or category offerings. So I think you can use data to infinite use only if you know where to gather it, how to use it, and how to put and draw inferences out of it.
Good. So now, obviously, when we come to a scenario where we've got to take control about everything, technology is available, it is commoditized, but it still comes at a cost. There is still a cost element attached to it. So building a D2C brand would mean focusing a lot on the cost aspect of it, but you need to drive revenues because you've got to answer investors' queries, your own queries, and hence profitability in a certain sense. While that's a very nice word to use, but an extremely difficult one to follow a path on. So if you were to look at three different aspects of your business, right, in terms of growing, building, and fulfilling, I'm sure you are all at different stages as far as this is concerned. Take your individual stage at where you are in right now, and if you could just let us know, what are those tenets of profitability that you're focusing on today? Anyone can start.
See, I think firstly the three phases are applicable for everyone, irrespective of which phase are you in, right? Because you need to build. Right. Now, the building blocks would be have your storefront ready, focus on your design, prototype, on manufacturing, supply, or sourcing, however, depending on the nature of your business. And then comes the growth or the market phase, right? That define your consumers, define the product attributes, define the brand communication, the language, what the brand stands for, and very important to understand and define the relevant mediums upon which you would go and buy media and be able to speak to your consumers. And I think fulfillment is largely a part of how, one can break it down into three parts. Order fulfillment, which is your last mile supply chain, intertwined together. The other thing would be, are you fulfilling the customer promise, right? It would be largely post-sale. And the third would be, I think, a very qualitative aspect, which would be the brand promise. That before the customer came, interacted with the brand, saw the entire persona of the brand, and after the sale, how has his or her experience been? Right. I believe for us, while all this cycle will always remain, but in terms of, I think the other way to answer your question would be, currently we are in a growth phase. We have been profitable right from day one. I believe when you're bootstrapped, there's no other way but to stay profitable, because otherwise, you cannot be sustainable for a long run. So yes, we have been there for the last 8 years. We have focused on profitability from day one, and we are in a high growth phase right now.
Okay, and coming to you, Abhishek, you spent the first 2 years trying to perfect the perfect fabric for the merchandise that you are bringing on. So that's obviously a lot of time that you've spent before you started building, right? So
yeah, that's true. I think because originally we wanted to create a proposition that would essentially allow people who fall between sizes to find a fit, because our understanding was underwear is the most important garment that someone is wearing. So and we had the luxury and the time to be able to do that research because of just how our partnership was formed. So I think that time helped us a lot in terms of also planning our unit economics, also in terms of knowing exactly what would make sense in an Indian market, not just from a climate or temperature or weather standpoint, but also an Indian body type and size and fit standpoint. So that's been helpful, yes, and we did spend that time.
Okay, and so where are you now? What stage are you in right now?
We're also in the growth stage, but for us, I mean, we're trying to re-examine or reimagine what profitability really means, because we do our own manufacturing. So in a year that we can pay our tailors, say, 3 times what we paid them last year, but we don't book any profit as a company, we would consider that as a profitable year for us. So I think we're just trying to figure out what profitability actually means, and not trying to fall into a trap of growth for growth's sake, which we think can be a little cancerous in some sense.
Right. And my talks with investors over the past few months, because I also work with a merchant banking firm that works with startups on their funding needs. The 2 words that investors love is conserve cash, right? And if you put that in bold on your first slide, you'll probably get a good meeting.
That's a buzzword these days.
That's a buzzword these days. So it's all about conserving cash. But jokes apart, conserving cash would also lead to a certain amount of discipline that finally leads to profitability, right? So what is it that you do in your individual capacities in terms of being sure that while you are approaching the growth curve, you also conserve cash?
So one thing, what a lot of D2C companies do, in my observation, is burn, right? Because they're so focused on performance marketing. But if you really think of performance marketing, it's like steroids, right? They run out very quickly. They do perform, they act, you get the ROI, but they burn out. So it's like that. Early stage, you have to be financially prudent. You have to, really pay attention to your unit economics. That's very important. Just not look at the, short-term picture, but look at the long-term picture too. And I think in our case, speaking of our personal journey, that's where we were. So we're just 3 years into our company, and we were bootstrapped, profitable. We got funded last year. And so, it's, like I said, financial prudence is the way to go. Be careful of the near term while keeping in mind the long-term aspect as well.
So you've got to be pretty careful about this horse called performance marketing, right?
It's a very fine balance. It's a very fine balance.
Everyone else shares the view?
I would like to add another point. I totally agree with Aparna. And how we built Innersense is, first we got the product market fit right. Before that, not a single marketing dollar was spent on anything, right? So why the product market fit is so important? If you are doing performance marketing, it is even selling, and it's an impulse buy. E-commerce is mostly an impulse buy, or it's a price sensitive buy for the consumer. That's the sadly the Indian market majorly. If there you have the wrong product and you do get the numbers, you think you're doing well, you start multiplying, and it can go wrong somewhere down the line. It will go wrong because the product market fit is not there. So if that is right, you cannot be making losses because the product is right, it's working. So then if you add to performance marketing, it'll work better.
And Innersense is mid-premium, premium? What?
Mid-premium.
It's mid-premium.
Yeah.
So is it easy for, Supriya, is it easy for someone like Neerja to say, because I'm mid-premium, I can afford to be a little flexible in the way I spend my dollars? Or
Well,
How does it work?
I would answer that, like she rightly mentioned, even for us, because we are a sustainable brand, we came up with an innovative product, which is largely design and product focus based. We did take a lot of time. We took almost a year where we were only talking to customers. We had our products on the website, but we were still not doing any e-commerce sales. In spite of that, we got a lot of media coverage during that time. And it's only after a year when we, with discretion, we started doing our advertising. So we are, again, a mid-luxury brand. But it's also that the ethos that we have and the discipline that we have our internal modeling structure because we are design-based. So every product passes through that structure to understand unit economics and how it should be priced and what channels should be adopted to market those products. So every product is listed in our system and it goes through that filter. So yes.
So it's there at every aspect of your doing business. Now, coming to you, Mahesh, when did you start focusing on profitability? Did you do that right from day one? See, for example, Satish says he's profitable from day one, right? So what about you?
So when we started this business in 2020, tailoring business, so we divided actually business into 4 parts. One is the unit economics. It has to go out of my warehouse as a profitability wise. Then we divide in terms of we have exclusive branded outlet. So we put a number that hello? In a 3 month, my EBO has to be profitable. Hello? Then on above EBO, we have SIS. And SIS is like...
Mahesh, I think there's some problem with the microphone.
Hello? Yeah. So unit profitability, then EBO. Then we realized that there is a set of customer who goes to SIS, which is like a fabric store, to buy the fabric. So we started acquiring customer from fabric stores by putting our manpower, and that's become one of the most profit-making channel for us, and it's become profitable from day one. So the way today we are operating, right now we are operating in 13 cities. Out of 13 cities right now, 6 cities are profitable. And other cities which we are giving just time frame of 3 to 4 months to get profitable. So by March we'll be at a company level, we'll be looking at a EBITDA positive.
So one of the biggest reconciliations that a founder has to do today is reconciling between scale, and profitability, right? Did you guys have the same struggles, or were you absolutely sure that no, I'm going to be profitable from day one, I don't care about scale?
See, I think, again, I would just like to share my view. I think time can be an asset when you want to be patient. Time becomes an asset when you want to be patient, which means you know that you have the time to scale up. And I think it's very important, especially when you don't have much funds or when you're bootstrapped. And there would be a time when you will have to scale up. And when you scale up, challenges of performance marketing going all through the roof, because marketing your throughputs would lower down. And I think that's the balance is unique to every business, every category, the size of the market, that when do you switch the lever from being into revenue to growth and from growth to high growth phase and from high growth to what we call blitz scaling. For that, depending upon what capital do you have. But I think it's a very peculiar question and the answer lies in the category and the product offering.
So it's not only about the category, if I might say, it's also about whether the category is already squatted on by players, right? For example, in your case, right, it's not a new category, correct?
Yes.
So you just went in believing that there's a niche, right? Believing that there's a niche, and hence probably your view would be different from, let's say, Mahesh's, because he's talking of tailoring on demand, and it's e-tailoring or tailoring as a service, TaaS, I don't know, a new term, but so
I'd like to just add over here, Siju. I mean, I have. So we started this journey about 3+ years back, again bootstrapped. And last year, August, we went for our first raise. This year, again, we've gone for our second raise. We completed the round just now, oversubscribed. We changed our tactics midway this year, January, and the reason why we changed was one of the our current venture fund asked me a very direct question. He said, "Okay, you are projecting a revenue of this much. Then you ask me, Prodipto, what do you think? How many customers would you be needing to add on to reach a level like this? And we start calculating, because my average revenue that my customer, and we are B2B, right? So average revenue that my customer gives me is only so much. Let's say it is amounting to 1 lakh, right? That at that point in time, that was about last year. And if I have to reach a revenue, a monthly run rate of 3 CR, I would need 300 customers. How many do I add on every month? He says, no way can you reach it. So those at that point in time, immediately it struck us that the way we are trying to approach the market is very different. We have to go after enterprise segments, which can add something like on a monthly basis, 20, 25, 10, in that region. And that is the time when probably about 10 of them can get me to a level wherein it's already 2 lakh or 2 CR kind of a revenue target. You know that, so I think those are hard questions at some point in time. One has to ask, as a founder, one has to check and ask themselves, how do I go about the market that I'm going after? Because ultimately, if you need to have, see, we will be there in the market for raising funds, because if we are there for growth. And for growth, you will need to have funds. But do I have the runway to last me till the time I reach that? That is a fundamental question that we keep on asking every time. So our target has been, okay, keep at least 7 months headway. That's the kind of cash balance that you need to have on your accounts.
Perfect. No, appreciate that perspective from you as a B2B brand, right? But I'll come back to you and Damo in terms of how is it that you can help the remaining folks on the panel be more profitable, right? I'm sure both of you can. Hold them to it, okay? Now, coming back to you, Aparna, did you take a call saying that first we will target growth, then we will worry about profitability, or was it vice versa?
That's exactly what we did. So we launched a proof of concept, and it connects the dots with your earlier questions. So we did proof of concept on a marketplace platform because we were not ready to invest in our own platform. And the first year, this was 3 years back, we did 1 crore, and we said, let's validate this. So we are at our 3-year mark. We are at 10 crores this year. We've shipped to tens of thousands of customers across 40 plus countries. And one way that we validated, that our proof of concept has worked is through our customer love. We've received more than 6,000 plus 5-star customer reviews. So, that is a very strong validation that the POC is working. To her point, the product market fit is correct. And now we are at the point where we want to focus on the scaling part of it. So, how do we make this 10 crore, 100 crore business?
Correct. And, coming back to this, and how many of you guys have heard of this brand called Shobitam? Okay. Now, I think one of the points that you might want to talk about is how you work with the weaver community, because profitability is a very ruthless, a term. It's a very ruthless financial term. It's a number. End of the day, it's a deadpan number. But then there are some aspects which can't be quantified. Probably it will impact, growth on long-term basis.
Yeah. So my co-founder is my sister. So obviously we're both women-led, and the cause of women has been very dear to us. So, we've been employing a lot of women force, both at our corporate office as well as women weavers. There are actually quite a few women weavers. Now, when you look at the handloom, arts and crafts industry, not a lot of people know this, but it's actually the second largest industry in India after agriculture. And most people who work here, they straddle along the poverty line. So very close to what, folks in agriculture are. And technology obviously has not pervaded there, right? So the systems that they're using are still very, very, very archaic. So how do we bring technology there and make a change? Both my sister and I, we have had a technical background. So I worked for Microsoft in Seattle for 15 plus years. I worked in Silicon Valley too. So, it is basically doing something very groundbreaking, basically disrupt this particular space of leveraging technology and making a difference in these lives of people. So that's one thing that we did different, and it's really helping the community that we interact with. So we work with 500 plus weavers across the length and breadth of India, and they are very excited because they're seeing something very new, something very revolutionary in that particular area. And they connect with us very well because, like I said, not many people know that there are a lot of women in this journey. And to your point, it's not always profitability. It's always, doing some good karma along the way. And, one of the things that we did recently was, collaborate with this institute, BITS Pilani, and we launched the Shobitam Center for Women Entrepreneurship. The thing is, most of you know, less than 1% of companies get founded by women. And that's not because we are less capable, we probably don't believe in ourselves, or we are very scared of taking that big leap. So, the center is basically aimed at fostering, making other women, young women, believe in themselves, and, providing seed funds and fostering that culture and, reducing the gender equality that we see in this particular segment.
Okay. No, thank you so much. I mean, I didn't know about the BITS Pilani connection. Probably you and I will have a chat after this. But coming to you, Abishek, you've obviously, kind of leveraged gaps that you saw in the men's and women's innerwear market. Now, when you do something of that sort, there's a lot of cost going in beforehand as well, right? And so when did profitability kick in for you? When did this whole concept of profitability come in? Or was the focus there right from the word go? How was it?
The focus was always there, I think, right from the start, at a unit level.
No, I think there is some issue.
I think we always had that focus on profitability because fundamentally we had a sound understanding of what we wanted to achieve as a business. But truly in terms of what it's going to mean, in terms of reconciling what you said earlier between scale and profitability and growth, that is a process or just a question that we're still figuring out the answers to. And I think different businesses figure that answer out at different points in their cycle depending on when they've raised funds and what kind of pressure they are at and what kind of environment is currently conducive to their business. So I wouldn't say that we've cracked it yet, but it's always been on our minds, and at a unit level, we've always been profitable in spite of all the research, in spite of all the gaps that we've tried to service.
So out here on the panel, there seems to be a fairly grounded optimism of the fact that profitability as an aspect is something that they've all looked at an individual level and are well on track to achieve it. How many D2C brands out here? If I could just have a show of hands. Do you guys have any questions? Any concerns? Or are you all profitable? No, God bless if you are all, but yes. Can someone get a microphone to that gentleman?
Yeah, I had a question. My name is Shivam. So I would just like to ask you guys, like, cash burn is the reason behind this fast-paced environment of the competition which is happening in the market, or to achieve a fast-paced growth, or it's about fame which is being like happening after the Shark Tank came in India?
So did any one of you get the question? I'm sorry, we're not. It's not very
I'll
audible.
just say, do you really think that reason behind the cash burn is the competition to beat the startups in the market, or it's about rapid growth or addiction towards the fame?
So what's the reason for cash burn? Or why are you so keen on burning cash?
See, I think, again, cash burn depends on how much cash do you have, and largely it has to be fed from external sources. And that's one of the bigger problems, that when you're trying to grow too fast too soon for your own liking, you end up doing a lot of ugly things. And I think the biggest problem is when you end up spending insensible, copious amounts of money on marketing. Now, there's a reason why that is being done, because I think in a particular category or a market, if you understand that you could be one of the first mover and have that advantage, or the early adopter, you would want to be ahead and grab the market share as soon as possible. You could also do a lot of things wrong, possibly. The other thing is that everyone wants return on their money pretty much sooner than later, right? So, and that's again coming from the external part. That's what largely how the model of investment works. Be it VC or Ps could be a little more patient, but I think it is not to just distort the industry. It's how it is, and I think it is coming of age. While we're talking about D2C, how D2C didn't exist, 5, 6, 8 years back. It was earlier called e-commerce. I think we might just be looking at something new called a sustainable D2C or a profitable D2C. So I think, yeah, that's how the industry is right now.
So essentially, you burn cash for growth, but you better have a good plan to reclaim that cash back over the next 3-4 years. Now, I'm sorry, but we'll just continue the conversations and we'll take your questions later on. Now, coming to reclaiming, we have here Damo. So he's got a perfectly nice plan for reclaiming some of the cash that gets lost in leakage. And it'll be very interesting to hear what Damo representing Chargeback Gurus has to share with us.
Thanks. Firstly, I think profitability has not been an afterthought for all of us, whether we are providing B2B or B2C. It's part of the DNA of what we all do in our business. When it comes to Chargeback Gurus, our core fundamental is how do we help our customers or merchants do two things, right? One is recover disputes, revenue they lose in dispute, they write off.
Can you give us some examples?
Example is, there are three types of chargebacks and disputes which happen in online and card present transactions as well. One is first-party misuse, where somebody orders and claims they have not ordered, or they've ordered 2 pieces of a garment or an electronic product and they receive only one, or they claim they receive one, and you're able to prove that that is not true, then you can recover your. So otherwise you have a double whammy. You lose your merchandise and lose your revenue and write it off. And I'm sure all of the merchants here, if they raise hands, are they losing money today in disputes or because of returns or lost goods? It's going to be there. Second is true fraud, wherein we provide fraud and risk management services for you to be able to track various means and algorithms on orders origination, who's placing the order, what is the address, and so on and so forth. The third is merchant error, where we can, using our data science, we can predict, for example, what kind of reason code is causing disputes, delay in delivery, for example, right? You could have a recurring theme where you have logistics issues because of which you're losing customers, losing goods maybe, so on and so forth. Second part of it is actually prevention. So prevention is when we go and give them a white glove service and tell them what changes they can make to their business. Our business is not always about recovering. It's also about preventing chargebacks and disputes for merchants. And this is prevalent today in the industry because you have a borderless payment. You don't know where the transactions are coming from. You can use a card. As long as it's a global card, you can use it on an Indian website or on a US website. You can order a product. You can get it delivered to somebody else. So it's all seamless and borderless, which is great. And you also have these new payment methods. I talked about commodity, right? I talked about payment methods are growing every quarter, right? You talked about UPI, which is great. And you talked about credit on UPI rails, which means you can use a credit card on your UPI today. What does it mean to a merchant today? That means, right? Things like that. So how do you recover your revenues? How do you keep track of that? The second part of it is the recovery. So what you've written off saying, I lose 5% of my revenue in lost goods, which don't get returned, or friendly fraud for my customers, then we can come in and help you there. So that's where we make it an art and a science. We've been doing this for 8 years now in the industry. Like I said, our founders were merchants themselves in the healthcare space online, and they found that they were losing up to $50,000 a month in chargebacks. So they decided to fight it themselves and figure out how to do it. Even today, we do merchant advocacy. Small merchants who cannot afford our services, we have detailed blogs and advocacy on how to go and fight your own chargebacks. And for medium and enterprise merchants, we provide white glove as well as automation services.
So I'm a little intrigued. So what percentage, how do you quantify this? What percentage of a business, let's say...
It depends on the line of business and risk, right? When you do online transactions, you are categorized by what kind of business you're doing. If you're a gambling website as a merchant, your risk rating is high. And you get penalized by the schemes as well when you have high amount of disputes, which means they penalize you because you're not doing the business right, for example. But you are somebody who's not in a high-risk business, you have a lower threshold as well. So that's just one part of the story, right? The other part is you want to be profitable. You could be writing off $50,000 a month, making $1 crore, and you're writing 10 lakhs. That could be a margin, significant portion of a margin as well.
So saving that money is directly flowing into the bottom line.
It's revenue. So what we do is bring your money back to you, and therefore, we don't actually have to sell. We give a guarantee in most cases on our revenue recovery to our customers.
Seems to be an interesting area, correct? I mean, from you as D2C founders, brands, this is potentially an area where there could be a lot of help in terms of beefing up the profitability.
And we work across the globe. We see that the type of friendly fraud or first-party misuse changes from country to country. In India, for example, if you've been a merchant on Amazon, you'll find that I have friends who sell white goods. They get it returned, but the motor is changed on a food processor. You can't do anything about it,
right?
Because probably the portal is lined towards the customer service, right? No questions asked, return a refund. Right?
Correct.
Today you order on Swiggy, you say it's delayed, you get a refund, no questions asked. That's the kind of scenario we're dealing with. But if you're a restaurant on Swiggy or Zomato, how do you deal with that? If you're a small business, how do you be profitable, right? So that's where we come in and we bring in a knowledge through automation, through self-service as well, because what we have learned over the last decade is what is on our product and service. And you're able to go and fight your chargebacks when you're a low volume, small, medium merchant. You don't need to pay us to do that. You can subscribe to the product and you can fight your own chargebacks as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thanks so much. And finally, with you, in terms of how do you help the rest of the folks in terms of being profitable?
Multiple ways. So typically, let's say when a brand is committing itself to selling to the customers online via any channel, marketplaces, Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra, anybody, or even through your own websites. So the customers are out there. It could be any part of India. How do I ensure that my delivery happens? Today, the customers are all looking at 0 to 2 days or 3 days kind of delivery. So how do you go about doing that? So essentially, we come in as partners to the brands. We have our own network of fulfillment centers. These are all tech-enabled fulfillment centers. So what we insist first is, we have some D2C brands out there. I believe you all will be barcoding, right, your products. So just a question, do you go barcode at your end, or where does the barcoding happen in your products? Do you do it at your end or the manufacturing end or warehouse? Where would you be barcoding? A question. Manufacturing. Great. So I think that is the idea. The whole concept is that the manufacturer understands the product because that's where it has been made. And and that's the start of a supply chain. So you start with that. You ensure that every process which is now taking up, which is put away, zoning, to order processing, and ultimately shipping and manifesting, is all based on the barcode. So if, let's say, the barcode is wrong, then you end up sending the wrong product. Otherwise, the product is always correct. And that's what we insist. So we set up systems and processes across all our fulfillment centers. The same SOP has to be followed for any brand. Now, we've also realized, we cater to various different categories. It is apparel. Apparel also has returns. Now, how do you go about claiming those? So the SPF claim processes that are to be there, the video tracking which is to be taken. So all those things we set up to enable the brands lodge their claims whenever that happens. Within that time frame of 2 days, the claims have to be put up. So these are the steps that we have enabled. The inventory that they are keeping is a common inventory across all the channels, so including the B2B. So they don't have to block their inventory for Amazon separately, Flipkart separately, or anybody. So that's a huge saving when it comes to inventory side of it. All these are based on SaaS modeling. So the costs, overheads for all these are shared across brands. Now, apart from that, for an FMCG player, we have added processes like, there are big issues to do with batching. There is other processes wherein, the product will go, so there is a life for the product. So all those processes we have to enable to ensure that, let's say if the lifetime is the expiring is happening in 3 months' time, so the product is sort of brought out. There's an email communication which goes to the brand that you have to see to it that you actually take the product out or pass it on to some other marketplace, or see to it how do you liquidate. So these are things that we have set up to enable the brands perform better. I believe all these are processes which have enabled, few of the brands that are working with us. They stuck with us for more than a year plus. Some of them do mention that it is added on to their bottom line close to about 10-15% kinds. That's what I can.
So essentially unlocking the efficiencies in the supply chain which is there. And I hope you will extend the same ICS 2022 discount as Damo is giving out, right?
Absolutely.
To all the brands out there.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think this is what we had time for. Satish, I'll just end with you. What is that one thing that brands should do and the one thing that brands shouldn't do in pursuit of profitability? Let's end it with this.
See, I think the one thing which everyone should always focus on, non-negotiable, is set a threshold on your gross margins and ensure that for the first 3 years of your business, you do not operate anywhere below that gross margin, because that's in your control. Most of the times, cost metrics are not in your control. And the other thing which I would urge most of the founders to not do would be to not bank upon spending too much on marketing to be able to scale up, right? I think that metric has to be really understood well. A lot of times I've met people who might not understand the medium and might just go about, driving performance marketing or possibly deploying an agency. So I think it's important for founders to understand the supply and demand side, because supply into demand is sale, right? That's a simple mathematical equation. So I think that's
Perfect.
what it would be.
Perfect. I think that's good to end with. What you should do to make sure that you're profitable and you grow your business, ensure that you have a set gross margin to work against, and make sure that you don't compromise on that. And second is don't be reckless with performance marketing. Right? Okay, I think that's all that we've got time for today. Thank you so much for being such a patient audience and for interacting. Thank you, folks. It was lovely hearing you out. All the best for your business. Thank you so much.